Alrighty, today on the workbench we got this piece of junk. Craig Pioneer FM 8-track Underdash, and it is in terrible shape. Well, the tuning knob works. Everything else is stuck and corroded. Alrighty, let's put power to it and see what happens. Alright, we got it all hooked up. Let's see if it works. We'll do the radio first. Wow. That's pretty amazing. Let's see if the volume control works. Barely. It's stuck pretty good. Okay, those are bad. Alright, so the radio works. Let's see what happens if we put in the tape. Turn off the fast forward. It's kind of sort of trying to. Nah. There's nothing there in the tape but the motor spinning. Alright, let's get her open and see what's going on. Alrighty. Let's get past all the dirt and the screws. Something tells me this sat in the barn for a long time. It is a real pile right now. All the rust. Let's see. Let's come up with a mounting bracket for it. Okay, that's rusted. Yeah, those are definitely no longer nice and shiny and black. You know, people really like these players. They like the big round circle Craig Pioneers the best. But these things have got pretty good sound when they're in good shape, which this one is not currently. Alright, let's take a look. Dirty and corroded. I don't know if you can tell in the picture, but the belt is almost falling off. It's so shot. Look at the tiny little flywheel in this thing. Alrighty, well that'll be an easy fix. Let's go ahead and get the rest of the case off, because as you can tell by looking at it, it's going to have to all be repainted. I think that some of this is going to be going to the bath here momentarily. Alrighty, let's get the rest of this off. Okay. Get the knobs off. Of course, they're going to come off in two pieces because that's how it rolls. Oh, when in doubt, try harder. Right? There we go. Have to get off these sliders. Fortunately, they're basically falling off. Okay, now we take the screws out. Good grief. And I apologize for the quality of this video. I've never done one of these before where I actually show me working on a machine, so it may be very boring. Alright, we'll get that off. Everything's nice and corroded. And let's get this last piece off here. Alright, So there's the machine. Doesn't look great. We'll have to clean those and lubricate them because they're stiff, and these slider controls have a tendency to stay jammed permanently once they're jammed, so hopefully we fix those. I think the next thing we're going to do, and I'll bring you in a little closer, is we'll get off the flywheel assembly, and then we'll sandblast it. Okay, so here we are. Let's get a little closer here. Typical rubber belt, small flywheel. Normally they're a lot larger than that, but you can see just how loose the belt is. So what we're going to do now is we'll take those two screws off, and then we should just be able to pull the flywheel assembly out. And I'm doing this one-handed, so this is a little tricky. Alrighty. There's one. We get the other one in the back. Sorry if I got too close there. And I do have a capstan sandblasting tool, courtesy of my late friend Dan Jobin, who was a very great benefactor to me. Alright, that screws out, so we'll take that off. Take off that rotted belt, and the flywheel should just come out. And there it is. Now you see that shiny area right there. That's where you can see these rough areas there in the middle, shiny. That's where the 8-track has been wearing against the capstan all these years. So what we'll do now is we'll go out and we'll sandblast that, and that'll give it a nice rough surface like it had originally, plus clean up any goop on it. So we'll do that next. Alright, here's the sandblaster, so we'll just put this in there. And there it is, all sandblasted up, just needs a little bit more. There it is, all roughened up. OxyClean takes off this tread as good as anything else. So once you've got the stopper in there, it looks pretty bad. It'll clean up. These are definitely going to need to be repainted. Lots of rust. And of course, the knob. Everything goes in, nice hot water, let them sit for a little while, then we'll scrub them down. Alright, I won't bore you to death while I wash all of this, but you'll get the idea. If you've ever done dishes before, that's kind of what you're doing here. Just cleaning off the metal pieces and the plastic pieces. We'll get them rinsed off when we're done here. This one you got to be a little more careful on because you got to make sure you get that window cleaned off. And also dirt likes to reside around the crevices. We'll repaint all these little things here in a little bit. We'll do the knobs. Try to get all these little cracks cleared out. Keep those out because we don't want to lose them down the drain or something. These you just kind of do with your hands. Alright, I don't know if you can see how dirty that water is, but those things were really filthy. Okay, I'll rinse them off, and then we'll go out and we'll put a new belt and the capstan back in and see how she plays. Alrighty, the next thing I'm going to do is determine what size belt. You can do this with a ruler, but I've got a belt gauge. So let's just find the belt, put it on there, and it's measuring out to be about an 8.75. So you go about 10 to 15% less. So we'll go with like an 8.4 or somewhere along the lines. It looks like an FRM belt. So we'll get the belt. Next time you see this, I'm going to clean this faceplate off, put the cap stand on the belt on, and then we'll test it again and see if the 8-track player is working correctly. Alrighty, I got that cleaned up a little bit. I've got the belt back in with the flywheel and the cap stand. I haven't put the cover on it yet because I might have the wrong size belt, but I think it's right. So let's go ahead and put a tape in and see what it sounds like. Well, it's trying to work. I don't know if you can hear that, but this control is so dirty. There we go. So it's working a little bit, but controls are filthy, and the track changer is moving very slowly, so we'll need to lubricate it. It's slowly coming back to life. The capacitors, I guess, are reforming. That's a goofy term, but there they are. So we'll get this lubricated, we'll get these controls cleaned, and then we'll play it again and see how it sounds. This is not unusual for these to be very, very stiff. And when you spray cleaner in there, they'll get even stiffer. So we'll have to put a little lubrication in there as well. But first thing first, let's get the controls working correctly. Very typical for these slider controls. Get very, very stiff. And unfortunately, the cleaner makes it worse. Whatever lubrication they've got in there gets removed by the cleaner. So what we'll do now is we will put a little oil down inside there and see if we can get it working correctly so they're smooth, because right now they won't work with knobs on them. They'll just break. Okay, so after a lot of fiddling with, put some oil down inside there. Got them to the point where they're moving pretty good. They're a little stiff still, but that's just the way it is. Fortunately, with the balance and tone controls, you really won't fiddle with them that much once they're set up, and the volume control is working really well. But these work pretty good, and they'll continue to loosen up the more they get used. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to see how it sounds with those controls cleaned up. Still a little dirty. We got left and right. Pretty good volume. I think the right channel is still, left channel is still a little weak. So what we're going to do is let it play for a while and see if it comes back to life. I think it will. We may also check some of the capacitors, but I think they're probably okay since the radio sounds so good. So anyway, we'll come back to it in a little bit and we'll verify all the functions, make sure everything's working correctly, and then we'll start reassembly. One thing I did mean to show you is right down in there, that's the track changing mechanism. This is a little clogged up, so for lack of a better way to put it, spritz it down really good. And now the track changer is working perfectly. Sometimes all it takes is just a little bit of lubrication on that to get it going again. Sometimes it can be that the pot metal pieces are screwed up, but in this case, just need a little oil. Alrighty, I went ahead and put a different belt on. The belt I had on it was a little too thick and it was playing a little too fast. One thing I want to talk about, and this camera's not the greatest, little very fine 4-0 steel wool around these controls. Clean off all the crud around the base of them, so when you put it back together again, you don't see it. Just a little thing. You want it to look nice when it's back in your car. Alright, so now it's playing really good. And I'll probably never get anywhere with the copyright on this thing. So that's all fixed. So what we'll do now is we'll get the top on top of the capstan and the flywheel assembly. We'll start putting the front face back on, and then we'll work on making it a little prettier. We do have a handful of dirty screws here. What I'll do on these is I'll just take them and put them into my hand and some soap and water and rough them together, kind of like a miniature rock tumbler. Get most of the rust and the dirt off, and then they'll be ready for paint. Alright, these pieces are pretty rough. Now these have a texture to them on the paint, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint them with hammered paint in black, and then we'll show you to you when we get them done. Now the player does have some surface rust on the very back panel here, but since no one's ever going to see that once it's installed, I'll show you how to fix that up. Hammer time! There we go. Good as new. Alright, here's our painted pieces. Left them out in the sun to dry for a while now. They are ready to go. They look good. Let's get it all put back together now. Alright, here it is basically put back together again. I've left the top off so you can see it's working correctly. Everything's been reinstalled. Two of those knobs have been put back on. The third knob I haven't polished out yet. Fortunately, just some very fine steel wool. We'll clean these off and get them back to looking almost perfect. So that's what we'll do next. We'll get that done, and then we'll get the top back on, and then we'll show you the whole thing when it's finished. Alright, here's the finished player. Turned out looking pretty good. This was a pretty easy one. Not a lot of electronics repair on this one's pretty much mechanical, but here's the radio. That works good. Then the 8-track player. Showing you what you're looking at there. These controls are still pretty stiff. I used one of these markers, touched up the Pioneer and all that information on there, and there you go. So in case you're curious, that's how the backside turned out. The label's pretty much shot, but we know what it is. We'll write it on there. But with the hammer paint, clean things up quite nicely back there. It's all set. And again, remember, once it's up in the car, you'll never see it anyway.